Writing this intro was incredibly difficult for me. When I first started making this video, I had one mindset, but as I went along and finished it, my perspective has shifted in a fairly radical way. I do like Star Wars Outlaws. It was marketed as the first true open world Star Wars game, and to some extent it delivers on that promise. However, it's also Ubisoft, so we all knew there would be some growing pains. One thing is undeniable though, no matter what your opinion is on the game, it manages to make you feel like you're a part of a much larger galaxy. And compared to Jedi Survivor, which will often confine you to smaller towns or abandoned streets, Outlaws on the other hand allows you to truly immerse yourself in the streets of these bustling worlds. You can feel the heartbeat of these places thanks to its vibrant NPCs and the handcrafted detail put into the architecture. It's a unique experience that makes the world feel alive in a way that few other Star Wars games have achieved. But as much as I want to praise the game, there's more it could have done. It's clear that Outlaws has something to say, but it doesn't always manage to say it in the most effective way, and that's frustrating. Especially because this was a golden opportunity to prove to Disney and the studios that we as an audience don't always need lightsabers to feel connected to the Star Wars universe. There's more to this galaxy than just the Jedi and Sith. Outlaws was an opportunity to explore that in a meaningful way, but it stumbles when it comes to truly fulfilling that potential. Now you might be wondering, if I'm saying all of this, why even make this video? Well, I love Star Wars, I like this game, but that's exactly what makes it even more frustrating. The potential was there, and it's painful to see it not fully realized, which is like every Ubisoft game, I know. I don't entirely blame the internet for most of the criticism towards the game. In many ways, it reflects a lot of what's wrong with Ubisoft as a studio right now. But even with all of its flaws, it's clear that there are passionate people who pour their hearts into this project. If anything, this game feels like a cry for help at times. We are all more than our faults, and Outlaws deserves to be seen in that way. As people just saying it's the worst game of all time with no elaboration, harassing the devs online for getting awards, and I should address it here, weird facial animations doesn't make Kay ugly, it's just the facial animations are ugly. Which is a problem that still persists after the patches. All I'm saying here is that when these are the loudest criticisms, it won't allow for a real change, at least for the right reasons. For this video, I want to amplify the voice of the game in whatever way I can. While the game's flaws are frustrating and undeniable, it's still a Star Wars game that carries a sense of heart and vision. It deserves more attention for the things it does right, and a chance to dive deep and see what it could have become. But first, let's start with the beginning. The first set of missions is pretty straightforward. We try and do a job goes awry, we are forced to go on the run, but wait, we do another job that goes awry, but this time with more significant narrative weight. At least this one, the set piece is cool. Yeah, pacing in this game is something. It feels like you're taking 2 extra steps to reach somewhere that should only take about 1 step. See, the first mission has Kay break into a club. Things go wrong. There's consequences. Your mentor figure character, Bram, gets shot in the leg, but it's a sign you need to get going. You are then hired to do another job. Break into a mysterious new crime syndicate's vault, Zarek Besh, and with the payout, Kay will finally get the out she wanted, what she needed. It's no longer safe for her on Canto, given the first job fucked her over. Zarek Besh is now currently one of the most powerful syndicates at this time. The heist goes smoothly, but this wasn't a heist for money at all. You are hired by the rebels. You are here to save a rebel. No money at all. It's a nice twist. The rebellion being the ones that get Kay caught is cool and enhancing the perspective of the good and evil lens we've seen in this universe. It's because of them Kay is captured and barely escapes with a top 2 companion Star Wars character, Nix, and because of that you now have a death mark. Now you are forced to leave Canto. At this point the game has taught you the basics of stealth, combat, hacking, explored a bit of Kay as a character, but you could have just done all of that in 1 step. Have the start of the game be where Kay takes the job with the rebels, get captured, as in the game the head honcho of Zarek Besh, Sliro, is trying to interrogate Kay on whatever she may know about the Rebel Alliance, but she gets help from Nix and the game proceeds as normal. May get complicated, so just stay with me. As I established, Bram gets shot in the knee by another gang because of that first job that went awry. But what if here, Bram was the one who made the sacrifice play for Kay to escape? and it could be just a mystery on if he was killed or not. Recontextualizing it this way could help build more complexity for Kay, how her ambitions of trying to make something better for herself were too much and possibly got her mentor figure killed. She could be left contemplating on who to blame, the rebellion or herself. This could push her in so many ways in deciding what she really wants out of life, and also adds a bit more context of this left behind baggage she carries, which is baggage given to her due to her mother, but we'll get to that later. The reason why I'm presenting this hypothetical is because the pacing really kills a lot of momentum for any cool or interesting ideas this game presents. This can easily turn players off from engaging with the game further, especially since once you escape on the ship you think the tutorial is done, the game would begin. No, the ship needs repairs, you have to crash on a new planet Tashara. And honestly, I mean this with no offense, this planet is kinda boring. It's a bit more complicated than that. The game looks pretty, but it's mainly plain fields. There's not much in the environment that really challenges you when going on the speeder. Nothing will make you consider where you're going. There are these structures that seem to emulate racetracks or something, but they don't work. I don't know what the point of these are. I thought that's what they would be, but they don't. The most concerning thing you have to consider when being on a speeder is dropping from high points, and to the game's credit, you'll have the time and button press to land perfectly and gain momentum. But like, why couldn't you use these racetrack looking things as a way to get around the map in a more unique way, or present unique gameplay challenges? You get a speeder upgrade, which all it is just a progression tool that, yeah, gives you a speed boost and the ability to get through certain win puzzle locations, but after that, it has no use, which is insane as I feel like every other planet has a distinct vibe that made me go through it differently. But to be fair, it makes sense for Tashara on a design standpoint to be so simple. Depending on where you are, you may not have certain speeder upgrades, and given that it wants to deliver the open world experience, it can't limit players on where they can or cannot go till they upgrade, so it can't be too in your face. And on average, you'll spend the next 4 to 5 hours here. So how is Tashara? I mean, new planet, new opportunities, am I right? The ship needs fixing, so we find ourselves in Mirogana City. We were pointed to the Pike Syndicate leader by Waka, a ship scrapper that seems to have some ties to this place. Bad ties, as we are kicked out when we mention his name to the Pike leader, Gorak. So we build ourselves up on our own. We learn of the players on this planet, Crimson Dawn, Pikes, and the Hutts. We also meet a contract broker named Danka, who gives us, well, a contract. Has us go into the Pike District and steal valuable intel. Notice how I didn't say stealth, as with the most recent updates, they changed it for players not to fail the majority of the missions when caught. The power of choice is good, but a lot of people on the internet, of course, misinterpreted this as Ubisoft not fixing the stealth, even though they did in patches before this, but making it so players won't get punished for experiencing how bad the stealth is. I blame the gaming journalists for this one. At launch, there were issues with its stealth. I can't attest to having experienced it to the extent other people have. As someone who has 100%ed AC Unity, I feel like I can handle just about anything in terms of stealth. But within the most recent patches, stealth does feel good overall. Detections now feel more fair and balanced, with new indicators that help inform you about what the enemy is reacting to. Enemy placements can make you think about ways to work around them and set up clean ways to take them out, while retaining that stealth. That's partly due to the fact that Kay is just a girl in a Star Wars world. A lot of people don't like this, but I appreciate this shift in power. It's through Nyx that allows Kay to gain the upper hand. Kay can use Nyx to distract enemies by placing him at a specific point of your choosing, or you can send him to attack one enemy which can distract another nearby when you go in for a takedown or a stun shot. An effective way of doing the classic stealth trick of twos. And even if you're fast enough, you can take down 3 enemies in quick succession. It feels great. But the biggest issue with stealth is enemy design. Yes, in recent patches they made changes to enemy detection. The enemies themselves are just not the most engaging. There's not much challenge when dealing with them. The biggest problem is that enemies don't really move that much. There are barely any patrol routes that make me think quickly on my feet. I was never really challenged by level design to look or think about the path I took. Maybe on a couple of occasions, but only in like these linear set pieces. In let's say Assassin's Creed Origins for example, NPCs will have day and night cycles. A guard will be patrolling in one place for 1 minute and then go to sleep in another. It made engaging with stealth more interesting and challenging. Outlaws has things for you to consider in the environment when it comes to stealth, but nothing about the enemies themselves. In most stealth games, there's things like enemy prioritization, or we'll see the enemies evolve in some way, shape, or form, so we as the player have to evolve our stealth tactics. But unfortunately, Star Wars Outlaws has an issue when it comes to enemy progression, but we'll get to that later. And that's a shame, as it does feel cool to do stealth, but it's this aspect here that holds the game back for me in this front. On the other side of the spectrum is combat. Kay isn't a tank, she can die in like one headshot. So you'd be playing the game like a cover shooter, but it has some things that make it engaging. Kay's blaster is designed to be primitive, but reliable, but you can grab weapons left on racks or dropped by enemies and have Nyx pick them up, without compromising cover. The weapons are notably more powerful but have limited use till it's thrown to the side, so you'll still be challenged, as the enemies will overwhelm you with numbers, or throw grenades at you. Some may be using a shield, so to disable it, you may have to switch your blaster mode to Ion. Kay's blaster comes with technically 4 distinct blast types, 3 of which can be customized and upgraded to do more damage or reduce heat buildup. It makes the use of this blaster more personal. As you invest more into it, you are rewarded to make it feel like it's more reliable. I think the game is trying to push for the feeling of using every tool at your disposal, and to me, the game is more fun when you actually use more than one tool at your disposal. And with recent updates, I find myself being more aggressive to get pressure off of me, throw grenades, popping shots from the hip, using the melee combat. You'll be constantly pressured and pushed to be on the move and think on the fly, while also trying to take down enemies effectively. This leads me to this Deadeye-like ability where Kay has a meter that builds up, mainly through how intense a combat scenario is, essentially an anxiety meter, that when built up she can lock the fuck in and shoot 3 one-shot kill shots. However, more powerful enemy types will only be stunned, so it gives you more to think about when using it. If you couldn't tell, this is what I wanted from this game in a gameplay sense. Something that can feel dynamic, that makes me think. The enemy AI sure can be a bit dumb in areas, but it honestly does enough to make me feel like I'm in an oppressive situation and makes me want to adapt in combat. Stealth doesn't do enough of that for me. With all that introduced, the game proceeds to have you do some jobs, because at this point you kind of have to earn your freedom a bit, which feels representative of Kay as a character, and that is contextualized in a few different ways. Most notably through the crime syndicate system. In this job that I mentioned prior with Donka, where we're going to the Pike District, we do the job, but we also find some incriminating information that could compromise the Pike Syndicate. We have a chance to get the data to the client herself. We learn this person is from Crimson Dawn. Her name is Alira, and we can give her the Pike data, or save it for the Pike leader himself, Gorak. This choice is our main introduction to the reputation system itself, which is broken down to 3 main ranking parts. You start off poor, but being more favorable to a faction will increase reputation to good. There is multiple ways to increase faction rank. Doing contracts, delivering data you find, dedicated missions or activities. As you climb the rank, you get unique cosmetics, some upgrades that enhance K, and a discount at vendors that are under the respective syndicate. Also, you are free to walk around in the syndicate controlled districts and use anything they have in stock. Once you reach excellent, you get more of the same, and then once you reach the max level, you get a unique outfit. And wait a minute, why is this the outfit for the Pikes when Crimson Dawn has a Crimson Dawn outfit? I mean, yes, I get it, the Pikes are working for the Empire, ha 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 ha, but I want to look like a Pike to symbolize my loyalty to them. That goes for any faction. Ah yes, the Hoth Leia outfit, because the Ashiga clan is in Kijimi, the snow planet, right? To be frank, they should have sold these outfits in the store, as I was hoping for the Ashiga to have a samurai Ronin looking outfit, and they sold that in the store. It isn't all bad, as with the outfits comes with unique perks that can only be activated once you keep a good or better reputation with that faction and are wearing the full set. So it adds more weight to the decisions you make on who to side with. But Does it really? See, everything I said about the system is legit all it has to offer. It doesn't really influence anything beyond not getting a certain upgrade for your blaster. The most consistent benefit is perhaps the higher paying contracts, but I mean, how much money do you need? To be frank, I find this system to be very bare bones. Yes, it may unlock certain side missions, but I don't know. Why not give us more opportunities to know some of these people from these factions? Like Lyra, a character who just ends up being a contract giver, nothing more. I'm not asking to be their friend, but you give us so much, but not enough to dive deeper into these people or have them really stick with us. With these quests, we could have followed arcs that help us better grasp why these syndicates exist. What purpose do they serve? K is a perfect vessel for us to understand some of what goes into it. But no, heck, this is literally the perfect time to explore these syndicates deeper, given the fact that we are now at a point that the Rebel is at its peak, the Empire is at risk of falling. This is why you made the game, but I feel like this is such a very bare bones way of exploring it. All these cool characters introduced, wasted as contract givers that only give you money and doesn't really do anything. Also, the choices that you make when engaging with these factions doesn't matter at all. Like, I really wanted to test out how much I can influence or control, and you may think, well, you're just a cog in a large machine. Why would your decisions have much influence? But there is missions, arcs that are presented to have such weight that could infect a syndicate's influence on a city. When Gorak hires us to stop a defector from escaping to Crimson Dawn, and I chose to help that defector escape, I was really looking forward to watch the Pike Empire burn down. I was ready to dance on Gorak's grave and everything, because, you know, fuck the Pikes. But no, I got down reputation and Gorak is just completely irrelevant to me. Hell, the entire system feels so irrelevant, like an add-on, as all it does is just give you things to do, but nothing all that meaningful or deep. I think anyone who loves the game will agree with me in saying this system is pretty lackluster. I understand why they couldn't make any radical decisions or choices of the narrative, because, you know, the canon. I am aware that Lucasfilm can be very stingy when it comes to these games and what they do from a narrative and gameplay sense. Sig Asmussen has a great talk with IGN where he touches on this, and I'll link that below. But with all that in mind, why give us choice at all? Especially when it's so superficial. This syndicate system is a pillar of the game and what it is, what it's marketed as, and you don't even have to dig much deeper into it to realize how bare bones it is, unfortunately. Sorry to say that, but it's true. I feel like this game has this sort of identity crisis, as the aspects about it that stuck out the most to me isn't the crime aspect, it's the open world aspect of it. And, you know, this game was marketed as the first open world Star Wars game. So how is it? Let me just give you a quick rundown on things that has been happening narratively. We've been spending these hours on Dashara to get things for the ship, so Kay can go to hyperspace to go to the core worlds. Waka tells us the location of an old nav computer, which is compatible with our ship, the Trailblazer, and it's a good gameplay section. I feel like it's moments when the game takes you to these one and done locations where it's the strongest. And once you find the nav computer, to no one's surprise, Waka, the scrapper Kay just met and offered his support in rebuilding the ship with no catch or anything of the sorts, betrayed us so he can get the ship we stole. I'll give this a pass, as Kay is presented to be this rather naive character whose only experience is limited to the casino planet of Canto Bogaloo. She hasn't become a fully fledged outlaw, if you will, which is the point of the game entirely, so sure, fair enough. But this reveal also gives us a solid reveal of Vale, the bounty hunter who's after our death mark, which leads to a great set piece and then leads to the coolest reveal of a character in this game.
Okay, let's just take a second here. Enough. Just come quietly. Who are you?
Run. I said, run.
It's at this point where The game now feels like it's actually starting, which goes back to my original point about how this game just loves to take multiple steps to get to a step that should only not take as many steps as it did. It's frustrating at times, as you can probably tell. As when you get back to the ship to escape to Shara, you meet Jalen Vrax, and a proper introduction to his droid, ND5.
Saving you was hard. I'd rather not kill you.
It's here when the actual plot is being set up. A heist is being set up. Now, with the fact that Deathmark is a actual real threat for Kay, she is more than willing to work with Jalen to get a team and get back into Sleero's vault. As well, since she did it once, she can do it again, and now with proper backup, seems fair. I highlight all these narrative beats as I feel like with this game, it didn't really make your time in Shara feel all too meaningful. It's more about getting things and presenting all these new gameplay mechanics and systems, but as I established, some of these mechanics aren't all that much engaging. We just saw the only other side character die, so there isn't much for us as a player to emotionally invest in, beyond the idea of going to other planets. Yeah, you get to have a spaceship, but the driving force for that is Kay did escape and be free, which has then dramatically changed. All the stuff of Jalen should have been set up in these earlier hours, and we could have had that built up a lot more interestingly instead of all of it being put into the middle section. This game reminds me of Red Dead Redemption 2 and how the goal as Arthur is to help his gang survive the pressures of law trying to get rid of outlaws. I mean, it's very clear where this game gets some of its influence from, but it doesn't hit the same because we don't have characters or things to emotionally invest us into this setting. The stakes, plot, and characters hasn't been built up to like maybe hour 7, when in Red Dead it became rather prevalent in Mission 1. Once again, I'll repeat, the stuff of ND5, Jalen, these two characters could have been built up in the starter section, and it would have made the game better. I think Ubisoft very much over-relied on the fact it's a Star Wars game instead of developing things to give this Star Wars game more of a personality. Of course, there is nothing like being a part of this galaxy, but you're going to need more than that to help this game really stick with a lot of people. That being said, we have a new goal when exploring the galaxy. For the heist, we have to get a crew, so we are free to explore a set of planets at our own pace. And this comes with its own set of problems. Problems that have played Ubisoft games since Far Cry 5, give or take. See, if I can go anywhere I want, at any time, it makes it impossible for a game to really have notable character development and progression. Kay is more of a caricature throughout the game than an overall person. She acts the same pretty much throughout. There isn't really much challenge this character really goes throughout the game in terms of like a personal level. That being said, she is likable. She's voiced pretty damn well by Humberly Gonzalez.
He lost Nix. I'm getting him back.
From Jabba the Hutt.
Yes.
You've never met Jabba.
I don't care.
I've had dealings with him before. He is extremely dangerous, Kay.
I said I don't care. Nix is family. You wouldn't get it.
I see. There's a back entrance to Jabba's palace near Mos Eisley. It'll at least give you a chance. But Kay...
It's risky. I get it.
But these arcs doesn't go as deep as go here, help this guy, hire them, and repeat. Granted, they have twists and turns that are honestly quite exciting with good set pieces. Like on Kajimi, in the finale of the arc, you have the choice on who leads the Ashiga clan, and there's ripple effects of the consequences of each choice. This choice wasn't even like out of nowhere too. It was set up for both Kay and the player to question both sides of the spectrum and to think what could be the best. And there is actual unique ripple effects for the consequences of each choice, beyond just the reputation system. On one choice, we see it causing a divide within the Ashiga clan. On the other hand, the Ashiga is becoming more oppressive, forcing the people to work in factories, which honestly made me feel bad when testing it for this video. That's good. That's emotional investment. Also, I have to say the whole section at Jabba's palace is chef's kiss. A stealth section going through this iconic location is something I didn't know I needed, but here we are. But it's just missing that character development, some lesson or thing for Kay to take away from. This is a crew we are trying to build, so building some connection with the crew, I don't feel like it's too much of an ask. Especially, for example, on Akiva, you need to hire a droid smith. Gadik is his name, which he will help open the vault door at Slayer's mansion. This is a person Kay knew on Canto, but due to a job going wrong, she left him behind when he was caught, forcing him to work under the Empire, which is why we have to save him. This could have been a great opportunity to explore Kay as a person, but the game doesn't do anything with it on this arc. The most you get is missable dialogue in the ship between Kay and Gadik at the end of the game, which depending on your progression could be 2 or 10 hours after the arc on Akiva.
Is there anything you need before we hit Slero?
Yes, in fact. I want something from you. For letting the Empire take me back on Canto. For not even trying to stop them.
What was I supposed to do? The police were right on us. Look, okay, I'm sorry.
No. Not an apology. I want you to accept that there are 2 Ks. The one that left me behind, and the one that risked her life to get me out. Because this is only going to work if we get the right K.
Why not have this emotional intrigue or conflict, if you will? I can't even word this correctly, I'm kind of frustrated. Why not have this in a dedicated arc? Why not have it in the Akiva arc? In the arc, explore this dynamic more. It just boggles my mind. They had the keys to unlock and explore K more, but did nothing with it. This is an issue that pertains to all the arcs. There is things that are touched on a bit here and there, but they don't do much with it beyond like flashbacks, which I don't need to explain why using flashbacks to explore character dynamics disappoints me at this point. My guess as to why the character development is so sterile is because this game was made by over 600 devs in multiple studios around the world, which isn't uncommon for a game like Outlaws. But with how Ubisoft has been making games like, let's take AC Valhalla for example, they assign different arcs and regions to different studios, which in this game works as it does give each planet a distinct feel, I feel like. But that can also be a hindrance to the narrative. Especially considering with how the game launched and what we know about Ubisoft as a company and how it's managed, it wouldn't surprise me that they couldn't lay out these deeper stories as much as they could, possibly due to time constraints, deadlines of the sorts. As with recent updates has proven, the game definitely could have benefited from releasing in the fall. To me, when thinking about the narrative, it's like doing a class project, but everyone is doing a different thing at the same time, not working together on each individual thing. I could be touching on things in game development I have no business to speak on, as I'm not a developer, but when the game's direction has issues like this, I am left to question the integrity of that direction. Look, instead of having each arc available at any time, why not just have every planet available, but every arc just be presented one by one? Many games has done this with Succession, Jedi Fallen Order. Red Dead Redemption 2, while a bit more open-ended, had missions unlocked as you progress through the chapters. Hell, Assassin's Creed 1 laid out a rather perfect foundation for the structure. The way Ubisoft has been doing this openness of narratives hasn't really worked for years. They always suffer, which is a shame, as I think the exploration of the planets themselves is where Star Wars Outlaws really shines. In a lot of Ubisoft open world games, it's unanimously agreed upon that the open world is just really well done and represented. When going to Akiva and landing on the landing pad in Mira, and the soundtrack playing as the rain shortens Kay's hair as we walk towards the city is powerful. Akiva is honestly my favorite planet given the scope and feel of everything. I don't need to explain anymore how beautiful the game is and how it does all of its environments. But as you progress, you unlock a speeder upgrade that presents an actual meaningful difference to how you get around the planet. And then Tatooine, man, it's just done so right here. Having a day and night cycle, being able to see the twin suns rise and fall. On a design standpoint, it feels really refreshing, with its varying design and pathways and roads that makes you think this is pod racing. And then when going out into Dune Sea, it actually feels dangerous because of the crate dragon that can actually eat you. And of course, finding the Lars farm in the farthest corner of the map. There is nothing left of what it was, just buried. And that was very powerful to me. And then Kijimi is cool. For the vibes, I mean. I understand why this planet isn't that fleshed out, but I can't help but feel disappointed. The planets feel really good to explore, not because they each have distinct personality, but because of a pretty well thought out exploration philosophy. The game doesn't have loads of colors of map markers, and then turning off the compass is actually a very viable option that I would push anyone to experience. The design of the planets allows for you to take notice of landmarks to investigate them. The most engaged I've been with Toshara was when I found things totally on my own. By noticing climbable surfaces or structures that intrigued me, I felt awarded for that experience through stunning views or chests perhaps, not just for collecting things. The game has its open world standard things like camps, activities, but I was very happy to say they didn't feel redundant. Each base has a unique layout. The locations of chests or points of interest wasn't handed out to me either. I had to explore and look for them. Make assessments. The Imperial bases have vaults you can't fully access without slicing. There may be cameras in the way that you have to work around. Once again, the layouts for these places are great, but touching back, my issues with stealth is that the enemies don't evolve, which is the problem of having this open structure, as you can't give the player a progression system that feels like you're going through a evolution of K. Furthermore, I would like to say I really like how side missions are done. They mainly consist of these intel missions. Basically, you may find these by listening in on conversations, talking to someone you may notice. It promotes a level of player urgency I've wished from Ubisoft games for years. The game has multiple forms of side content. The most unique type is expert missions. Basically, Kay has to find people out in the various planets and work with them in some capacity. The speeder upgrade on Toshara has you follow a character as you help them get back experimental technology she gave to the Empire. While getting the tech and having her install the upgrade on our speeder gives us a speed boost, it also gives us a few other skills to work towards. This applies to all the experts. Once you complete their missions, you'll get a unique ability, but you'll also have unique tasks that will push you to explore or interact with the game in multiple ways. And these tasks will give you new skills. The skills can actually improve how the game feels and presents even more ways to interact with it, as one expert will give things like a whole new blaster mode, which brings new damage and recoil to balance and master. Or another will unlock new ship maneuvers, really opening up new things you can do in space. The tasks themselves are fairly basic, like have Nyx grab 3 things or jump a certain height with a speeder. The system isn't anything too invasive either, so I would say it's actually a really nice innovation to progression. You have the traditional side quests as well, but they are dedicated to the different syndicates. They are labeled as faction opportunities. These will actually give us a bit of that deeper insight of these syndicates that I wanted, but still retain the issues of not doing all that much. I do appreciate some of the stories told, I just wish the game presented them in a more honest way, or deeper way even, with more impactful consequences to the reputation system itself. And then there's Sabak. I fucking love this game, man. I scream at my monitor in rage whenever a virtual player screws me over and causes us to lose either way. It's a game that is constantly shifting with the use of, well, shift tokens. I'm not gonna go into the logistics of what they do, but they really help make the game more interesting and exciting. And then there is cheats that have their own unique minigame to them that can push the intensity as there is risk of failure. And if you do fail the minigame, people will become more suspicious of you. This risk of failure is something I feel isn't a constant in this game's stealth, which is why I think so many people will always obsess over this game. The risk of failure in stealth used to be based on getting caught or an alarm going off. And with how easy stealth is, it doesn't really do much for me in terms of adding risk to the system. I know I'm really pushing hard on the stealth in this game. With it being a scoundrel game, it makes sense for the game to be designed with stealth in mind. And then when you compare it with the other systems, it just doesn't work that well together. It doesn't compare, even in a lot of ways. It's at this point, as I am writing this script, I realize this game hasn't had anything definitive to say. I feel it, I see the heart, but it's not speaking to me. It could be due to multiple reasons, like the lack of character being explored, or the shallowness of the crime syndicate. It gives you things to think about, but nothing that truly sticks. It isn't till the end when the game can actually develop with what it has, a consistent problem with Ubisoft games. As the beginning of the end of this game is where it becomes interested to have more personal stakes presented. ND5 is getting old, he's withering away, going back to his old program. Throughout the game, there is enough moments of dialogue and interactions that help make Kay's willingness to care for ND5 believable, and he's just an all-around cool character. I, as a player, also want to save him. We go back to Akiva as there is an old droid factory, and it's here where the game remembers that Kay has a death mark. As we see one of the experts we meet on Akiva get interrogated about her whereabouts, which builds a sense of urgency I feel wasn't fully present in the game. And of course, the droid factory set piece is cool as hell. We get a new tool from Gadik, which I don't know why it wasn't introduced during his arc. There are some engaging puzzles, also a nice narrative twist with the rebels, and some emotional stakes that are now more fleshed out, as ND5 is struggling to keep it together and not revert back to his original program. Saving ND5 gets us knocked out, and when we wake up, to no one's surprise, Mom is here. We need 2 slicers for the job, and no one else is better than Rico Vess. So Jalen took it upon himself to bring her here. And wait a minute, is there tension going on? Is there a side of Kay being presented here? Man, it's insane how all it took was a little bit of focused lens, and we have a very cool Star Wars special going on here.
Why are you here?
Jalen said you needed firepower, and rebellions aren't cheap, so.
I like how Kay is written during these last few hours, with Rico now being here, puts a chip on her shoulder, which is done in a way that doesn't feel forced or overbearing. It's actually balanced out very well, and we see Kay's heart melt as we work with Rico throughout this initial mission. The mission itself, from a narrative standpoint, is essentially the heist setup process. Zarek Besh's leader, Sliro, is having a meeting with the Empire. So we're infiltrating their ship so we can get Sliro's access codes to the vault. I also really like this section from a gameplay standpoint, as it dissolves a lot of my issues I had with stealth throughout the game. Enemy patrols actually challenge you. A lot more cameras are placed, which makes sense from a design standpoint, given we are infiltrating the Imperial Security Bureau, or ISB for short. So it gives me things to consider. The gameplay actually gets to progress a bit because it's the point of no return. There is rooms of death troopers. These enemies are really good at noticing you, and can't be taken out with a lot of the traditional stealth tactics, so it adds more tension in these play spaces. Also, how could I not mention the Darth Vader reveal and the twist that Sliro is ISB? And this scene isn't just fan service either, it actually serves the character of Sliro, helping us understand what his purpose really is. In this scene, we learn that the ISB created Zarek Besh as a front to infiltrate the criminal underworld to try and expose Rebel Alliance, which is such a cool way of twisting our world and how we've handled things in history. At this point, it's a tradition for these games to just have Vader end people's careers, but as I mentioned, it helps us understand Sliro a bit better. As having Vader as a boss in this capacity would give me gray hairs as well, I feel you, homie. But then the heist at Sliro's mansion itself is really fun. All the characters you've recruited get to have a moment to shine, and from a gameplay perspective, it checks all the boxes very well with stealth, puzzles, and action set pieces. And then toward the end had like this quadruple twist being thrown at you. I won't get into all of it here, but there was never any money in the vault. Only an Imperial databank that Jay wanted to use to take Zarek Besh from Sliro, which we also find out is his brother. Ah, so I was supposed to pay attention to the classic villain monologue about family he gives in the beginning of the game. See, Kay could have walked away when she was knocked out and stored into the escape pod, but she can't do that. Her mother walked away and that affected her entire life. It makes sense for her to come back for ND5 so he can have the choice of being free, which is the whole reason we started the whole heist. Just now the reward is different. For this section, we need to get ND5 disabled, so we can free him from the spike that controls him under Jalen, because currently he is out to hunt us. We have no way to take him head on, so we have to run and hide. The game becomes a survivor horror level, and I fucking love it. You hear ND begging Kay to run, in fear of killing her. It's such a powerful section emotionally, while being very stressful as you try to set up the traps. It hits all the right notes when building the finale, from Jalen's death to the escape set piece, and then blows up wonderfully as we get to take on a Star Destroyer. With the added cherry on top with a unique cutscene depending on how high of a rank you are with a faction, and which will then have them fight alongside you as we blow this thing and go home. After that is all said and done, it's just you, ND, and Nyx. You are free to go anywhere you want within the 4 planets available. The game doesn't have much of an end game, beyond finishing up any side quests or contracts, which doesn't do much in terms of switching things up. And of course, any other point of interest, your standard stuff. Look, this isn't the worst game ever made. It's a fun Star Wars game, but it would have been helpful if it was better. Because of the game's financial shortcomings, we will probably not have another open world Star Wars game that is interested in at least trying to tap into the criminal underworld, for a while at least. We saw this with Battlefront 2, and even though despite the game still having such a constant influx of players on consoles every month, studios seemingly are afraid to tap into that market more. And it's clear to me the same will ring true for Outlaws. Similarly to Battlefront 2, I'll still come back to it, as it does give me an experience like no other. It does succeed in ways and allow me to be a part of this galaxy, to embody the scoundrel fantasy, a fantasy I didn't know I needed. And I will appreciate the developers for making that. But it's just a shame that that vision won't fully be realized or get to evolve in any way. See, with the things I said in this video, when writing this script, it all came to me very naturally, but now as I'm at the end point, I just have nothing else to say. But thank you for watching.